Hi peeps. I had a recent viewer request from a Patreon peep to do a video on altars, and so I thought I would speak about that this morning. As you can see, Vincent and I are staying with some friends of ours, and I've really been reflecting on traveling altars since I have recently crafted one for Vincent and I this week as well. So it seemed like a beautiful time to talk about this. And this video is not going to be a historical dissertation on altars. I'm speaking more to my personal practice with altars and what I've found to be the most impactful with them over the years. And also how they really come to be an expression of reverence for me in my own journey. And also how my work with altars has shifted. So I'm someone who has always placed stones in visual arrangements within my room. My father, while I was raised in the religion that I was, worked for a stone aggregates. And so from a very young age, I was given that he would find stones while he was out and about in his work day and would collect them and bring them home for me. And I would always have them out. And so from a young age, I really felt this power to, and I have my Venus is in Taurus as well. So I like things artfully arranged, and I'm a maximalist by nature. So I was always arranging the stones in ways that felt that they were appealing to the eyes. And also it became a meditation of sorts. And so when I started working with witchcraft, and when I started my research and connection to various goddesses within pantheons, it was very powerful and impactful for me to have a visual representation of the goddess that I was feeling drawn to on my altar. And then also I found that I preferred over the introductory books to Wicca that were popular at the time, which would have very set altars you would craft to honor the Lord and Lady. What I found to be more authentic for myself was working with natural elements like stones and shells and sticks and feathers, and representing, and placing them on the altar as offerings, but also as ways of connecting to the personalities of the deities, the spirit animal guides, or the guides that I was connecting with at any point in time on my path. And so I really recommend altar work if you are looking to build relationship with specific aspects of deity or guides that you're walking with. And it doesn't have to be, again, something that costs a lot of money or that's very stressful to do. It's more about what brings you pleasure in the act of the creation of the altar. I feel that deity and guides really love the pleasure that you bring to an act like that. And the fact that it requires an investment of time and an investment of your energy in the creation. So, I might choose specific stones in a certain formation because it's very representative of the deity that I'm working with. Or as time went by, I really found that I like to do elemental altars as well. So if I was primarily working with the element of water, then often I would really have a lot of representations of how I connect with the ocean on the altar. And when I'm working with the element of earth, it will probably be more of an altar that's representative of the woods with found antlers, and with other things that, for me, call forth the sense of connection that I feel when I'm out in the woods alone. So elemental altars also became ways of understanding the elements that I was working with, and also expressing reverence and devotion towards those elemental beings, those devas, if you will. Now, I also found within that as my tarot practice was growing and blossoming, I could make altars in devotion to specific cards within the tarot itself. So For instance, the Queen of Wands is a card that I work with a lot around self-worth and self-value. and also appreciating and being unapologetic about how I choose to adorn myself physically, or how I move energetically through the world. I also love working with the major arcana, whether it's for an aspect of that card that I want to bring into my life. So for instance, if I want to, let's say, move, I might work with the Chariot or the Wheel of Fortune or the Six of Swords, and have a small space on my main altar that's dedicated entirely to that energy. It's an act of devotion. It allows me to bring positive focus in the creation of that altar space to what I desire to experience. And it also allows me to meditate in front of the altar, connecting in with the energy that I want to bring in, the experience that I want to bring in. So I have in my practice, when I'm at my home, a large working altar where I would do ritual for specific clients or students or general energy at large. I would have magical workings for what I'm currently engaging in practice in for myself. Again, as I just mentioned, perhaps something I want to create or something I want to release, right? The altar space, the visual representation, and the work it takes to make that space and to craft that in that honor, I find it really helps me to connect in with what it is that I'm wanting to experience and create. And it allows me to build relationship, because after you create that altar space, that's then the sacred space where you can sit, meditate, journal, connect in with that energy, dialogue with deity. And so I have a main working altar, and then I have smaller altars throughout my home devoted to other aspects of my craft and practice. And those are traditionally smaller altars that are set up for specific deity. So I usually have a running altar personally for Venus, for Lilith, and for Isis. And then I also have a devotional altar to the god Satan. And at times I will also have devotional altars for, let's say, Osiris or Hades, at times Persephone. Those are other deity that do come in. And there are specific times of the year when I have altar space devoted entirely to Santa Muerta. So I have altars, smaller altars, and then I have a main working altar. And at times those smaller altars will also be representative of specific elements that I just want to express appreciation for and connect with and feel the love of in my life. And those are things that every time I walk by, I can touch the representations on the altar, or I can take a moment and look at, I have a mini altar here for Isis, look at the statue of Isis, connect in with her energy, share an exchange. You know, maybe I say something to her or she expresses something to me in that pause in my day to connect with her. So it really allows for a constant flow with my practice, because those visual representations are in my home and I'm able to constantly connect in with them. It's really beautiful, and it's a very profound aspect of my practice for me. The other thing is that the act of changing over the altars, which I do typically based on the Sabbats and the moon cycles, but I'm not rigid with that. I really flow with, if the energy or the vibe still feels the same for myself personally or in my home, and let's say I've moved from Litha to Lanasa, I'm not going to, force myself to change that altar completely. I might adjust certain elements of it. I might not. The other beautiful thing is that when you go through something significant, you can also completely shift the altar. It's representative of the change you are undergoing. It allows you to feel connected to your practice. And it also keeps the practice vital and alive, I feel. They're really markers for where we are on our journey. So as some background into how I work with altars, myself personally. And of course, I use my main working altar for any spellcraft or ritual witchcraft practice that I do personally based on the Sabbats and, again, the moon cycles. I follow the dark moon cycle. It's just more in alignment probably with my Scorpio moon. So I work with the dark moon cycle personally, and any workings I do around that, I craft in front of my main altar or I do out in nature. And I just want to add the caveat I always offer here. You do not need to go invest thousands of dollars into what you put on your altar. You can ask nature to let you find the items you're meant to have on the altar, and then go take a walk in nature. Check in that it's acceptable to, take that stick that's on the ground or that stone that you found on the beach. And if you get a yes, go ahead and use that in your practice. Your card decks can become representations of deity, representations of what you want to create in your life, elemental representations, numerical representations, and spirit animal representations. So allow yourself to think outside the box and what you collect and how you work with that. I would say the only thing I've found over the years I have to purchase is a candle, because I do love candle magic. It's one of my favorite practices as a witch, outside of mirror magic and scrying. I'd say all three of those are probably linked together for me. And so I purchase candles, and I do purchase incense because I like smoke to clear, to cleanse, and also as a focusing device for meditation. So I would say those are the two things that I would really say are, from my perspective, a required investment. So please don't feel pressured to craft some gigantic altar because you saw it on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and then you have to buy all these things to make it look good or to please your gods. I have never found a face of deity that required excessive investment monetarily in order to connect with them. And if you're having that experience, I would check into, am I really connecting with deity or with a mischievous entity? So that's where I'm coming from with altars. The viewer request was, could I speak to a Patreon tutorial where I referenced crafting an altar in honor of an emotion? And so I want to now speak to, when it comes to altar practice, something that I've really been investing in, not monetarily, investing in energetically, and working with on my own path. And this is because I personally, for myself, have really found that crafting an altar devoted to an emotion that I feel uncomfortable with helps me to do my shadow work around that emotion, and also to embrace the fact that I'm human and moving through that emotion. So for instance, right now, working with the emotion of anger and the feeling of rage, to allow that to rise up and move through my body instead of storing it in my body, so that I can be a good girl, a good woman, a good person. And so when I feel that I'm desiring to work with an altar in honor of an emotion that I either have repressed or that I would like to release, the first thing that I do is a lot of journaling work around uncovering what's within the emotion that I'm repressing and what's underneath it. And then I will sit with, okay, what kind of altar do I want to craft here? Do I want to have this be a portion of my main altar, or would I like it to be its own individual smaller altar? And then I think about sacred items that I can gather that represent the healthy expression and release of those emotions, or what will allow me to be present to those emotions so that I can start to deal with what's underneath those emotions. And also so that I can honor for myself that we all process and move through things. So if you are moving through an experience, an emotion, or if you want to craft an altar that allows you to understand an aspect of yourself that you are working with in union with a god or a guide to assist you, an altar can be a beautiful representation of that. So for instance, personally right now, working with the emotion of anger and rage, I've chosen Sekhmet to be representative of how I want to galvanize and move and have a healthy expression of anger within myself, so that I'm not storing that within my physical body. And so as part, because I know I'm going to get a question on this, so how I do this is, if it's not a deity that I work with intimately, like in my daily practice, I will do research on the deity I feel called to connect with around the emotion or experience or desired outcome. And then I will sit in dialogue with that deity, either through a card spread or through direct communication. Then I will have a representation of that deity on the altar, and then the sacred items representative of the emotion on the altar as well, emotion or element or energy. And then I will craft some sacred writing that I will place on a piece of paper, and that I will fold and place underneath the sacred item on the altar. Now that writing can be a verbal vomit, if you will. It can also be a mantra I would like to repeat when I sit in front of that altar and just connect in with that energy and that emotion if it's an emotional altar. And then I also have a candle represented so that I can light that candle whenever I want to bring awareness or connection to the emotion, element, experience that I'm attempting to call in. This also works very well, again, if you're looking to get to know a deity. It can be a way of communicating with them. For those of you who like to draw sigils, crafting a sigil representative of this as well and placing that on the altar to meditate and connect with can be very effective too. And I like to astral journey or engage in witch flight in front of my altars as well. It amplifies my ability to tap in and to then explore and expand energetically. So I wanted to do this kind of updated video on altars and also speak to this emotional crafting. So again, the intention and the focus in crafting an altar based on a certain emotion or an aspect of myself that I want to be real with, that I want to be present to, is that through the art of creatively and artistically venerating and connecting to that by the physical representation of the altar itself, I'm already building the investment, the presence, and the connection to the practice that I'm establishing around that. And then when I feel I've walked that circle completely, that's when I will disassemble the altar lovingly and reset the altar space for whatever is called to be present there next. So it's a visual way of connecting in with a story, a theme, an experience, an aspect of the self or deity. And then it can become the release, because when you take it down, it's signifying that an aspect of this experience has been explored to the extent that it is able now, and that it's being released out energetically. So altars are essential parts of my practice, and they're very powerful. They do not need to be crazy and intense. And I will include at the end of this video some photos of past altars. I do not take entire photos of working altars while they are a working altar, because I feel that some things within a witch's practice should be kept secret. Secret aspects of practice have long been an aspect of witchcraft that is essential, both for safety, but also for magical working. So I guess, yes, I can also answer that in this video too. I do not show an entire working altar, because that is part of what I keep secret within my witchcraft practice, which makes me think of Gandalf saying, keep it secret, keep it safe, because that's essential to me as certain aspects of my craft. It's my own personal stamp as a witch, which belongs to my gods and myself. But I don't believe that you cannot show your altar at all. And I also don't believe in the competitive, ego-driven aspect of, competing with others for whatever kind of an altar. An altar should be crafted with intention and authenticity, not with the idea of trying to show off or cause jealousy in others, right? So if that's coming up, don't be hard on yourself. We're all human. And allow yourself to wait until you can craft that altar at a time when it's authentic and not about trying to look like or be like or cause a jealousy from other individuals. I think I answered everything there, guys. Yeah, I felt really called to do this video based on the wonderful Patreon viewer question, and also because altars you know, traveling right now as I am, that was the first thing I did, was set up my altar, my little altar space on the bedside table for Ices, so that I have something I can visually look at and connect in with whenever anxiety or fear or exhaustion arise. It's a way of staying connected to my practice that lets that be a daily living vital practice. Now, of course, ancestral altars are another thing altogether, and I may do a video on that someday as well. But I'm not addressing that in this video. This is about daily altars that I work with in my witchcraft practice. So I hope you are all doing well out there in the world. I am sending you, as always, oceans of love, and I will, of course, see you in the next video.